Director of CARECEN. It's an organization formed to aid migrants fleeing violence in Central America that now helps the wider Latino community in the United States. Thank you for joining us. First, what is your group, your community, doing to prepare for Sunday's raids?
Well, thank you for having me. One of the things that we are doing is to inform the public of what their rights are. To remember that the U.S., like many conservatives like to say, is a country of laws. And both the ICE enforcement has to also follow those laws. And one of those things is that people have rights in the way they allow law enforcement into their home. So for us, it's important for our community to understand what they can and cannot do to make sure that they're ready if ICE comes to their home or approaches them on the street.
I think it's an important distinction because I think a lot of people often forget or assume that these people don't have rights. You're telling people that they do have rights and they can exercise those rights.
Correct. So for example, ICE may have an order of arrest because of their court disposition, but in order to enter someone's home, they still need a court from a judge, signed by a judge, and so they just can't have free entry. Also, you still have the right to remain silent, and what we have been doing is to educate our community to understand that even if they are in the presence of immigration, they still have options for them to do that can either, facilitate their detention or make it difficult. We understand that there are issues around their legality, but there are also wider issues as to why they're here and what the response of the U.S. should be for those people, those individuals that have been living in this country for a long period of time and are contributing to their communities.
So there's a lot being discussed in this migration story: kids in detention centers, family separations, border crossings, turning people away. But the people being targeted in these raids, the government says, are people who already have deportations orders. So they've been through the process, they've had theoretically their day in court. Why the outcry here in these cases?
Well, I think that one of the important things that we should remember is that who he is targeting is who is also at the border right now, and something that the president actually calls a crisis, which is really a made-up crisis. I think that the crisis is the treatment of those individuals that are fleeing violence. And we have to remember that the countries of origin, particularly of the Northern Triangle, which include the countries of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, are in turmoil, places that are very violent, and to a certain extent there's a shared responsibility by the U.S. of why those countries are in those conditions. So the minimum that it can do, it can mitigate some of this by allowing people to stay. But unfortunately, our current laws do not allow for that. As a matter of fact, this administration has really closed a lot of the avenues for people to file appropriate claims so that they can stay in the country. And basically, they've been shown the way out. And we think that this is unfair, and we need to work to reform the laws. But I think at this moment, this targeting has to do more with a political campaign than it does to enforce our immigration laws.
All right, Abel Nunez, a lot to talk about, Executive Director of CARECEN. Thank you for joining us.